Welcome back to another episode of Beyond Funding. Today I'm joined by Chris Pitt, Group Impact Director for Benefact Group. Now, Benefact Trust is the charitable owner of Benefact Group, which is a group of specialist financial services organisations, and together we have a really strong giving ethos. Today Chris is going to be talking to us a bit more about corporate giving and how charities can work more effectively with corporate donors. So Chris, welcome to the podcast.
Lovely to be here.
I was wondering if you could start by telling us a bit about how corporate giving actually works.
Yeah, well, it's a big slice of charity fundraising, and I've got some stats here actually. CAF in 2023 reported that charities received £1.8 billion from corporates, and also the Directory of Social Change, their top 10 corporate givers contribute £250 million just on their own. So it's an important source of funding for charities. It's a source of funding like any other, actually, really. The charities need to understand how it works, what the opportunities are, and how they're kind of best placed to get it, I think.
It would be great if you could share some good and bad examples of corporate giving and how this can have a real impact on charities.
Yeah, I think like any type of giving, I think there's always good and bad out there. So you think about foundations, there are foundations that do giving really well, and there are some that don't. So I don't think that corporate giving is any different. So it is hard, I think, for charities to try and navigate that, to try and see through some of the not so good schemes and the good opportunities and really find the corporates that are doing it really, really well. Personally, I think the Charity of the Year kind of approach, which we've probably all heard about, when it is done badly, that's bad corporate giving in my mind. It's bad because the kind of the relationship, the power in it is with the corporate, and they're kind of saying, we want a charity to do this and we're going to choose them. And I have heard some horror stories about charities spending an awful lot of time, investing a lot of resource in pitching for these kind of partnerships when it's unlikely that they're ever going to get them. I should say, I don't think that's always how Charity of the Year is done, but I think it's quite an outdated model. So I think the much more modern, much more effective way that corporates do giving is when it's really woven into their business models. So it's much closer to who they are as a business and organisation and how they do what they do. And having a partnership with a charity has got some real kind of mutual interest. So I think that's how it's done best. And I think the kind of businesses that you see where that's just really obvious are the best ones. So, I mean, you can think of any brand really, but things like Tom's, I quite like the shoes. It's things that are close to you that you remember. Ben and Jerry's are a big business, but they're quite a famous business. And I think they're good because good and purpose is at their core. So I think there's, no business doesn't have a purpose. But those businesses that really put purpose at their core and form partnerships with charities that support that are the ones that do it best.
I think also it's something that I notice is when people have real integrity behind what they're doing, and as you say, it's woven into their practices and they're doing it for the right reasons and not just to tick a box, because I guess some people probably could go in with that attitude of, this just looks good for the organisation.
Yeah, I absolutely agree. And I think you can soon see through that if a corporate is doing it because they want to look good or to be seen to be doing good. The best partnerships you don't hear a lot about for a while, actually, because they take a while to build and establish. But that's what a business is really doing, giving well.
Would you say that corporate giving has evolved over the years, and do you think it could work even better than it already is?
Yeah, I definitely think it has evolved and changed. I think like giving from any source, so foundations as well. But corporate giving, I think there are two ways. One's impact and one's shared purpose. Those, I think, the two ways that corporate giving has changed. And so impact, that is corporates looking to actually impact the world that we are in through that giving, rather than deliver some headlines or just people feel good about that giving. It is actually they want to see the difference in the world that funding is having. So I think that is a big change. And then the second one is shared purpose. And I think that is where giving is connected to the core of an organisation. Those are the partnerships and the ways of giving that really sustain, that are really meaningful and support the business in doing what it does. I think those partnerships that are a little bit on the side that just seem like a nice thing to do, they don't last. So definitely impact and shared purpose are the two big changes that I've seen, and I think they're around to stay.
Brilliant. It would be great if you could share a bit more about Benefact Group's approach to giving.
Well, the Benefact Group is like no other in how it gives to good causes, in that it is owned by one. So we give all of our available profits to you, the trust, and you distribute them to good causes, which is a very special business model. But as a group, we also distribute funds in our own right. So we distribute funds to good causes everywhere that we are based around the world. And we've always had a bit of a principle of wanting to give real breadth, so to as many different causes as possible, and real depth as well. So focus on some key issues and some key causes. In terms of breadth, we have our Movement for Good program, which if you haven't heard about, you have to visit movementforgood.com, because you can nominate a cause that you care about. And the principle of that is that anyone can nominate any cause they care about. We've got a brilliant map on the website, which is an absolute mess now, with charities everywhere that we supported. We also follow that principle in our employee-led giving as well. So all of us, I get supported to give my time, to give donations, to have my efforts to support charities matched as well. And that's a big portion of our giving. It's over £600,000 that goes out through that. So that's all about breadth and supporting what our people and our partners care about. But we also do focus on depth. So we have partnerships with charities that are really close to our customers and our communities. And there are some great examples of that. And perhaps I'll pick out one, which is English Heritage. And I think it's just one that really makes sense because as a financial services business, we insure and protect historic buildings. So we've got a real interest in them being around for the future. That's what we're trying to protect. So we're working with English Heritage to understand the climate impact on historic buildings. So that is fundamentally what they're concerned about, and it's what we're concerned about too. So it's a real kind of meeting of minds and interests. So we have funding like that as well, which is real depth. But one area that I did want to focus on as well that we do provide is more than funding. We recognise that we have a lot to give, and millions and millions of pounds to you, our owners, is going to make a huge difference in the world. But there is always going to be more need than we're able to satisfy. So we've launched a charity support program, which has a lot of different elements, all free to charities. So free webinars, free forums, free events. We produce our own podcast, in fact, articles, advice, tailored support, a huge package aiming to give charities support around funding so that they can make the most of that funding and that they can be really successful and sustainable. And this is particularly exciting because I think it's potentially a way that we can reach even more charities, that we can have even more of an impact on charities and therefore the world around us as well.
Yeah, that's brilliant. And I think something that we always hear actually from our beneficiaries is just that extra support on top of the funding is what really makes the difference. Because you give a grant or a piece of funding and say, go away and do this. But sometimes it's knowing, well, what do I do now? Or, how do I effectively use this funding? That type of thing that's really valuable to people, isn't it?
Absolutely, yeah. Charities need funds and they need funding, so they're always going to need that. But I think we're building an understanding that funding going further, really helping them be the best with that funding, is what they definitely need to.
How do you think charities can connect better with corporate donors?
Well, I think, again, I'd probably say it's similar position to foundations and any other sorts of funding. I think it's a case of how well you know those funders out there. So for any charity, it's about how well you know the corporates out there. And those are ones that are in your community or on your doorstep potentially. Bigger corporates who people in your charity might know that work in corporates. So I think it's a bit of a process of knowing who you know and what opportunities are out there. There are some resources, things like the Directory of Social Change, the UK Guide to Company Giving, which we're very proudly in the top 10 of and have been in there for, we've been third largest corporate giver for a decade. But that's a great kind of who's who of corporate giving, and maybe start at the top and work your way down. But how corporates give is explained in there as well. And that is the thing that is tricky for charities, but is definitely worth doing some research on. because like funders, I think no corporate gives in exactly the same way or has exactly the same kind of interests. They should all be committed to giving well and giving efficiently and being really clear about what they're looking for. But quite often they have different processes, different forms to fill in, different ways of approaching them. And we've been really, really mindful of that as a corporate funder, mindful of the time and resource and commitment it takes to seek funding for charities. And, you multiply it up and that can be very difficult. So we've shortened our application processes, tried to make it really clear what we want and what we don't want, even though that feels tricky sometimes because we never want to turn anyone away. But the worst thing you can do is set expectations and then not have the funding available. So yeah, I think get to know who's out there, what they're interested in, what they're offering. And I think that's the best route into some really effective corporate funding.
And I think what you say about sort of those aligning values is really important, isn't it? Because if you're a charity that has a specific focus, for example, if it's around climate or supporting children and young people, for example, there will be organisations that are focused on those elements more so than other areas, I presume anyway.
Absolutely, yeah. So look for businesses that have your charity's purpose almost at their heart as well, because no business doesn't have a purpose. Every business has a purpose. It's a case of how thoughtful they are about how to really fulfill that. And those good businesses out there will be looking for partners like you, like this charity, looking for organisations as well. So it's about finding that good match.
Do you think that corporate donors could have a bigger role to play in the future, considering cuts to funding? We hear a lot about there being struggles in terms of accessing funding for charities. So do you think there's an opportunity there?
Yeah, I think there is. I think we're all well aware that there are gaps in social services that charities are increasingly filling. And I think many of them are struggling to deal with the demand and not necessarily the right way that we should be funding how that support is given to the most vulnerable potentially in our society. But I guess as a result, corporates can support charities doing that work. And I think it probably speaks to the fact that corporates and businesses aren't a separate part of society. They are in society. They have an interest in society. So it goes back to this understanding that really good business with really good purpose is playing an important part in the world. And if it is, then working with charities, supporting them to support society, it is all the right thing to do.
I think there's something that could be said for also the sustainability of businesses. That means that they can, keep providing support. Whereas, when we've got, for example, trusts or government pots of money that can't be sustained, that's when the funding cuts arise. So
good businesses want to be around for the long run as well. They want to be sustainable, which means supporting their communities in a sustainable way. I think there's this old-fashioned view that businesses kind of taking resources from society and not giving back. But if they do that, they're not going to be around for long. So I think we've moved on a lot. And good, successful businesses know that they are a part of society.
Chris, what are your top 3 tips for charities that are wanting to work more with corporate donors?
Right, top 3. So I think I've talked about a few of these things, but just to emphasise them, I think number 1, treat corporates like any other funder. You've just got to get to know them, get inside their heads, what are their processes, what are they interested in? I think that's probably number 1. Number 2, remember that businesses are full of people. And a lot of people as a charity and organisation. So, friends, neighbours, trustees, anyone involved with your charity or that can be involved with the business. And typically I find that kind of trying to hit the CEO in a business isn't always the best way. It's quite often people within the organisation that you might be connected to. So remember, people and get to know them. And then I think thirdly, think about those shared interests and shared value. Those are the things that I think good corporates are really looking for. Good corporates will also be excited to form partnerships that aren't just here and gone. They want a long-term relationship with you. So if you can find businesses that are really interested in joint projects that deliver for them and you, those are the partnerships that you'll want.
Brilliant. Thank you. That was so helpful. And I think there's some really good information there for charities. Thank you for joining us for another episode of Beyond Funding. To find out more about Benefact Group, visit benefactgroup.com. And to find out more about the Trust and our grants, visit benefacttrust.co.uk. And as usual, don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube and Spotify channels so you don't miss out on future episodes.